welcome to today's Life Coach Pod show. We have special guests today. I'm super proud of who's here because I have a personal connection. Actually, I have a personal connection with most of the folks, but this one is a very special connection. So I'll tell you about that in just a minute. I'm going to start off with today's typical time capsule information. For those of you keeping track, it's actually a Wednesday. You'd be surprised how hard that was for me to figure out today. I don't know why, but they're just starting to blur together. So it's April 8th, time is marching on. And for those of you keeping the stay-at-home calendar, it is March 39th. Today, the big news stories of the day, of course, is Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the race. And the thing that's bumming me out right now that's happening on Twitter and probably lots of social media is people are being kind of nasty to Bernie supporters. That's not cool, people. That's not cool. Here's the deal. The whole way politics works, if you pay attention, if you're into politics, is you back a horse. And when you back that horse, and that's a metaphor, but when you back that horse, you put a lot of energy into it and you care about the person and you work hard for them. And then eventually that race gets winnowed down. And so in this case, my candidate got winnowed out a long time ago. That doesn't mean that I'm any less supportive of the new candidate. It just means it's a heartbreaker at first. So don't go after the Bernie supporters. Give them time to grieve. It's hard to see your person who you've worked so hard for finally step down. It's probably the right thing to do. I got to tell you, I'm not particularly motivated by the candidate we have right now. On the other hand, I'm super motivated by the person that's in office. So I want to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure we have a government that's really pro-people. And you know, my bias, it's pro-human rights and it's pro-civil rights. So yep, I am biased. I will own my bias. It's going to happen every time. But it doesn't mean there's not a chance right now to let the Bernie people take a beat and get used to the news. It just happened. Don't gang up on them and beat them up. Don't expect them to stand behind Biden today. Not today. Give them time. That's the whole beauty of politics is that you care. So it takes a while to let go of that caring and to shift. Okay, that was a speech, another soapbox speech. In other news, if you had a chance to see the Queen talk on Sunday, and if you haven't watched her, it's amazing. It's just the kind of message that you'd want from somebody that's maybe a grandma and also a sovereign leader of a country. She has enough years on this planet to have brought history forward and to be able to speak from the time during the war when the kids were sent away to the country in World War II to protect them from the bombs. And if you can imagine what that was like, that's when your kids got ripped away from you. In this case, we at least get to shelter with our families in the best of circumstances this time. But she has that perspective. But one of the things that she did, which is kind of delightful, is she wore a green dress. So if you're into Photoshop or video, you know that by wearing a green dress, you can then superimpose other images on the green dress. So today's delightful foray into what can you Photoshop is the Queen wearing, oh, I don't know, Baby Yoda. Yes, rock and roll dog. That's probably a logo from a band that I don't know, Star Trek. Also, I guess everybody's playing Animal Crossing. Thank God, not me. I don't know who has the time. Oh yeah, everybody has the time. Ironically, the Queen wearing Queen. There you go. That's an inside joke. The Queen wearing the Queen again. And then my favorite, because what's this video without the Queen with Prince Andrew coming in, or Prince Philip, sorry. Wait, which one? Philip. That's Philip, right? Andrew. I don't know. I'm not into royals. Anyway, it's the kid. He's coming in to bust up the broadcast. So I thought that was hilarious. You can find these on Twitter. I'm sure they're going to be on Facebook later today because Twitter seems to break these first and then they make their way to Facebook. I almost couldn't stop, but I did because I've got good taste. That's why. Because of course I have judgment and good taste. Said nobody ever. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're heading into today. I asked special guests to come. Jordan is who I asked to come today. Oh, let me tell you, wait, who's coming up? Tomorrow let me just tell you the guests that are coming up. Tomorrow I have Chris Pedretti. She is probably my new bestie. I mean, she is my new bestie in Sacramento, but probably one of the bravest women I've met. She was raped by the Golden State Killer. She was 15 at the time. She's going to come on and tell some of her story and then tell you about what she's doing now to reach out to victims of sexual abuse. I love her. She's been part of the caregiving crew that's helped the survivors come together since D'Angelo was arrested in 2018. And you can't even understand how brave she has to be to come on. This is not her jam, but boy, does her friend Jennifer drag her along. So she'll be here tomorrow. On Friday, we're going to have a grief counselor. We're going to thank you to Donna for bringing forward her actual grief counselor. Andrea, I hope I have her name right, is going to be here to talk about grief in the time of coronavirus, because we know it's different than anything we've experienced. Someone that actually Jordan knows, and I know, what passed just last week, and normally we'd want to rush to go be with her husband, and it's just not something we can do right now, and that feels so weird. So I really wanted to talk about what grief looks like in the time of coronavirus. And then I've moved Laurel to next week because I wanted to get Andrea in, or Andrea, figure out how to say it. And then, so that's what's coming up. But today, special guests, and actually Jordan brought a friend. Jordan is someone I've known for at least 15 years. I have been involved in his life as much as he's been involved in mine, although thankfully as he's become an adult, less so, as the same as my kid. And he has brought with him his friend Violet. And they're here today to talk about what it's like to be transgender. And the reason this is super important to me is that last week or the week before in Idaho, 2 laws were signed into law by the governor there. And I have a lot of opinions about it, but it makes me fairly crazy. One of the laws says that transgender girls cannot play in team sports. I believe it's just girls. I got to look into that. And the other is the one that says that birth certificates cannot be changed to match gender. And that I go insane, because I have watched Jordan's life and I've watched the struggles, and I know what it's like when your body doesn't match your brain. It's a struggle every day until hopefully it isn't. And I'd like to hear from Jordan and Vi about that today. But I've watched the pain of childhood, and I've watched the pain of adolescence, and I've also watched the victories, which is maybe one of the coolest things about it, is that actually when it comes down to it, transgender people are just regular people like you and I, just like me, just like you, like everybody. They have victories, they have hard times, and we all have our struggles. And the reason, and the lack of compassion, seriously, makes me crazy. So I would like to welcome Jordan and Violet, and have you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves. And I'm going to stop sharing so we can see you up close.
Hello, I'm Jordan.
Hi, Violet.
So guys, did you two meet originally in a support group or a place where folks come together?
I think it was mutual friends.
Yeah, and then we hung out at the Diversity Center.
Yeah.
Close to downtown a couple of times.
Okay, so Jordan, I'm gonna do perfectly frank stuff. Like, you transitioned from a body that was born with female parts,
Yep.
But honestly, you're a man. You're a man in every sense of the word. And Violet, same. You were born with a male body.
Yeah.
And yet you're a woman in every sense of the word. So this is it. I think this confuses people because they're thinking, oh, some people, oh, it's an abomination, it's awful. But honestly, it's just screwed up parts, right? It's just like Lego pieces, like they're just on the wrong place.
Yeah. I mean,
how do you experience it?
I mean, it's kind of a really weird feeling. I mean, over time and a couple of, like, getting used to it over the years, it's been, like, easier to kind of have a shifted mindset, but it's definitely been kind of like a trip, if you'd say, like the entire time of it. Just like when you're younger and you're confused because you have people telling you that you're supposed to be a certain way, and so like you listen to them, but it just doesn't feel right. There's always just like, I don't know.
So so speak up a little bit louder, but tell me, so it's so interesting because I remember, I think it was 3rd grade, and I saw you running around, and I'm like, oh, that's Jordan, and that's a boy. Like, I could just tell. You didn't need to tell me. Not that it even mattered, but I could just tell it exuded from you. Your energy, your how you basically related to the world. It was every part of your being. How early do you think you knew?
As soon as I could, talk and speak words and think free, legit.
Really, 3 years old? Because I think some parents are thinking, how could a kid know?
No, a kid can know when you're that young and you're able to think and because it's who you are, right? It's something that you can't change about yourself. And I remember literally like tearing off dresses and clothes that like were too girly because it's like, this is just not me. And I would literally rip them off and stuff like that and like run around the house not wanting them on me because they just didn't fit who I was.
Vi, did you have the same experience?
I did actually, and it was also at the same age. I was also 3 when I kind of like was starting to figure that out. So I think it was more one of those things where it's the thing with like when you like start realizing things like that, it's really, really internal and like it's super hard to like find like correct words to explain it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So definitely the same experience, and like just every single thing, like there would not be a time where I'd like be at a store with my mom like, okay, let's go clothes shopping, you start school soon. I would never, the boys section was never an option. That's not ever something I would gravitate towards. And so yeah, just things like that. It was funny because when I was younger, one of the things that I remember was I'd have like babysitters or like my parents being like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I have an older brother, so my brother would be like, oh, I want to be a cop, or I want to do this. And then they'd ask me, and I was just like, I want to be Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. So just like, and if that wasn't the biggest sign, I was like, yeah. So definitely things like that. So it was just like very obvious things that were like assigned sex is not matching up complete to anything.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. It just didn't matter what your body said. It was, you were so, it mattered so much to you to be who you wanted to be and who you needed to be. And if anything, I could understand that you might actually want to gender identify harder, if that makes sense, than kids that don't feel the need to make sure that they're clear who they are, right?
Sure.
So if anything, yeah, so I'll be damned if I'm going to wear some kind of plain clothes. I want to show who I am. It's important I express it. I just missed Vi. Keep talking to me.
I agree.
There you are. Okay, good. So tell me, okay, so Vi, I know Jordan's experience with his parents. I'm going to get to you in a minute, Jordan, but I'm interested, Vi, what were your parents, how did your parents take it?
So my parents were extremely supportive, and I like to like recognize that a lot because I feel like even like in like today's like society, like the past like few years, it's still like pretty rare that trans kids or just queer kids in general have full support right away, or at all sometimes.
We're very fortunate in that area.
Yeah. So I like to recognize that a lot because my parents, I actually told them when I was in therapy, which was really funny. And they just kind of like took it as like it was just another day. I just like told them, and they were like, oh, okay, is there anything else? Because I was on the phone with them. And then same thing with my brother. And so my family was really supportive. So that was really, really cool that I had that support right away. I wasn't, because even growing up, like being obviously very feminine and stuff, they didn't even blink. Like they were just, oh, that's just Violet. So that was really cool. So it was a very easy coming out process that is kind of rare still.
Yeah, I think it is still hard. Parents somehow really get their own identities wrapped up in their kids.
Yeah.
So I can see that ability to be separate and say, you know, you do you, I'll do me, and we'll both love each other for the way we are.
Exactly.
Jordan, how'd it go in your family?
That my parents and family were extremely supportive. I know at the beginning it was very, very hard for my parents to grasp what it was because at the time, me being 11, that's like 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of research then. So it was, my parents kept saying, no, you're a girl, just because there wasn't any information. So they just didn't know, right? And then after me continuously, you know, like being depressed and saying, no, this, I'm not going to be around this year if this doesn't happen.
You
And so,
mean suicide crossed your mind?
and I talked to my parents about it one day, and I think that they finally were like, okay, we don't know what we're doing, but we're gonna do it. And I remember one day there was this time in therapy where my therapist a really long time ago, she was like, let's do a trial. Let's, for 1 week, anybody that Jordan gets introduced to, Jordan's a boy. That was the best week of my younger ages. I remember being so fucking happy when my brother was like, oh, oops, sorry.
It's okay.
When my brother introduced me to his friend at like at a grocery store, and he's like, oh, this is my little brother Jordan. And I was like, yeah.
Okay, just your faces alone, for people on the podcast who can't see, if you can see the joy of just being recognized for who you are, and the fact that you remember that story.
Body feeling, it's euphoric. It's just like, oh my God. You know, it's kind of an intense feeling when you're able to be like, when you're accepted like that, because you're like so afraid of not being accepted with, this is just how your body is, it's just who you are as a human. It's like, it feels good.
So of course parents have this fear that, I mean, I can't even imagine from, well, I can because I happen to know your parents, but from a parent's point of view, the scare about, is this real? And what is this going to mean medically for my child? How did you guys deal with that? I'm interested in both your families, how you dealt with the reality, and then what that meant medically for you.
Okay. I have to think about my answer.
I know for a fact that my parents had their first mind went to that kind of anxieties, and they started to stress about that for sure.
Oh yeah.
I was more like present in the moment when I first started transitioning, to where it's like, okay, I can go by a boy now. I can be like this, and where I feel like it depends on sometimes, like, because I'm not really big on the whole like bottom surgery or whatever like that, although I don't, when it comes to a concern with other people. I know that when I had my top surgery, it was literally like taking like a couple like huge weights off of my chest and my back. Just like it felt like being washed away or something like that. And it just like,
well, yeah, because you were binding.
Yeah.
Because you were right at that age, 11, we're talking about right at puberty starts, and there was something called Leuperon, right,
Yeah.
that stops development, which is good. So even if a parent is worried, they're not sure, you're sure. That doesn't prevent. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I talked over you.
I remember on Lupron, the one thing that helped my parents kind of like be a little less stressed was that if I ever was going to change my mind at that time, I could go back and change my mind. That never happened and never will. But it was helpful for my parents to have that.
Yeah, I want to make that point because I think a lot of parents don't understand that intermediate step prevents you from going through female development at adolescence or male development, right? Does Lupron work the same in a male to female body?
Yeah, so I think it's a different, so mine's called spironolactone, which is just like a testosterone blocker.
Okay.
So like receptors. So with me, what it does is I was like, because I was already pretty far through just like developing and stuff, because I transitioned when I was 16.
Wow.
I was like pretty far like into the middle, leading more towards like the end. And so it, again, like my parents were just like, they didn't really know what to ask. It was funny because at that time, like when I was kind of figuring out everything, I think they had a little more information than I did, which is kind of like not how that works a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The kids have to like educate the parents and stuff like that. But with me, I didn't really know much about, like, I think that's why I was struggling so much growing up, was because I had heard like the term transgender of maybe like a handful of times. But with me, they just asked like, do you want to do any like medical stuff, like related things? I didn't really know what my options were. So I talked to some of my trans friends, and then they were talking about hormones. So I was like, that's what I need to do. That's what I want to do. So, yeah, so with spironolactone, it's the same thing. It's always reversible. And that was one of the main things that like saved my life, because
Wow.
it's done so much for me, because I'm at the point now where like if I wasn't on it and I wasn't taking it, like I would have progressed further, like in the way that I don't need for my life.
I understand without being graphic. I get it. Yes.
So, and then like, I actually started like taking estrogen at the same time. So it was estrogen, the effects work. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like from what I've been told, it works a little bit slower than testosterone.
I can see that. I mean, I remember just being angry for like 3 months
No, yeah.
straight.
When you first started on testosterone.
A little fireball.
No, yeah. Definitely. It definitely, yeah. The mood swings are very,
It's like spiky.
yeah, they're a thing. They're not kidding when doctors talk about, oh yeah, so you're gonna experience some mood changes. So yeah.
Oh girl, please let me tell you, I've been through menopause. I know. So
yeah.
yes.
So yeah, so definitely my parents were they did have concerns. They wanted to make sure I was like, it was something I really wanted to do. But they also wanted to like, they were like helping me like find doctors that like had a good reputation with things, and like they didn't want to just throw someone to me that like may or may not know what they were doing.
Mm.
And I've had some experiences with doctors that did not know what they were doing. So it was good that my parents I'm super grateful that they wanted to like make sure that I was gonna like take it in like stages and not they obviously no parent wants their kid to do something drastic that could affect their whole life, that could be like potentially negative. But I feel like we're at the point now where like they're like they're not gonna go back. No. Like everything's fine.
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't mention, you guys are both 20? 21.
21.
I'm gonna be 20 in June.
Okay, so yeah, but same age as my kid. Katie's gonna be 21. So so what you brought up doctors, and I happen to know that doctors aren't necessarily proficient at this either. What's the advice to other kids who might be going through this, or parents who need to kind of get it? Because it's,
you need to do your research, seriously, because you're gonna have doctors that literally will, like when they say they work with transgender patients, it means that they probably had a patient come in for a checkup who happened to be transgender. But that doesn't mean they have any knowledge with hormones. It doesn't mean that they have any knowledge with how a transgender person's body works and functions. Because, for example, with me, when I build muscle, I have to be really careful about my joints, because my body genetically isn't necessarily set up for the amount of muscle that testosterone will put on it. So I have to be really mindful of how I move and stuff like that. And doctors, they won't even think about that.
That's really important, because even, I mean, it's so weird, but like, yeah, your body, you still have some female parts, like if you get a yeast infection, of all gross things to bring up, but like you need doctors to be sensitive to that and to really look out for you in those ways. It's a wholly different, I call it the meat suit, but your meat suit is very different than other people's.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. Okay, and so now if you were talking, so I still have a hard time not understanding why people give any what's about who you are or how your body works, because none of us run around and tell everybody what kind of genitals we have. We just don't do that. And if you're on that level right now, if you're listening, you might have the wrong podcast. If that's really important to you. If you are a genital driven person, yeah, probably not the show for you. Is that a t-shirt? Jordan, can you make one for me? So genital neutral, that's what I'll put on there. But if you were giving advice, there's somebody listening, right, laughing. If you were giving advice to parents, let's start with parents first, because then we'll get to the broader group, teachers and friends and stuff. But if you were giving advice to parents right now whose kid is telling them they're in the wrong meat suit, what would you say?
I would say concerns are okay, questions are okay. Questions are greatly appreciated. But have a lot of patience.
that.
Because it's very easy to jump to, oh, is either wondering if it's like, okay, is this really the case or is something else going on? Like, and then starting to analyze like 10 other things that you think might be causing that. Really listen to how they're feeling in the moment. It's hard to be patient. Patience is really hard. I don't have patience. But yeah, so really just like take the time. Don't have it just be a one-day conversation. Have it like take baby steps if either your kid's getting uncomfortable. If you're getting uncomfortable with anything or anything, just ask questions. Just ask questions, be patient. Just listening and being calm about it, because if you get anxious, then your kid's gonna get anxious, and then they're not gonna want to open up. So make it a safe space for your kids to tell you things, so that you guys can all like work together on that situation.
I think remember, it's not a phase.
Yes.
If people are telling you that it's a phase, not a phase.
Yeah.
Get that out of your head right now. It's not a phase. This is what your kid, if your kid's really telling you, hey, I'm in the wrong skin, it's not, this is real. 21st century exists. People are going to be coming out more because of how many people are already out. It's not a phase.
So yeah, this isn't, I want to dye my hair pink because I need to express myself. No, this is, something is wrong.
It's not cosmetic. It's fully internal in your soul.
In your soul. That's really important. I think that's what I think people don't understand. It's so core to who you are. It isn't a phase. It's not a whim. It's not an idea you got off the television or because you want attention. In fact, if anything, this isn't the kind of attention you want, right?
Well, no, but we do it because we want to be voices, and we want to be able to help around and like show that show people that it's possible to be happy in this day.
Yeah.
So do you have a story about being misunderstood? Is there anything you feel comfortable sharing where somebody it hurt you, it hurt your heart, and you couldn't understand, how could this be true? I mean, we're lucky because you guys are in Santa Cruz, California, so I know there's a lot of leeway there.
Well, I mean, this one was actually fairly recent. So like, I think maybe I was kind of able to just brush it off, but at the same time, like I brush it off in the situation,
right.
So I'm actually in Santa Cruz right now visiting. I moved to LA in September for school and just to relocate. So one of my friends was in town. We were actually, the thing that was interesting was like, not only was I being misunderstood, but I was also just, people have a problem with being invasive, I think. Trans people. So I was actually, it was like midnight. I was going to the Rocky Horror Show with one of my friends. And so we were at 7-Eleven getting coffee across the street, and just because it was late and we were like, we need coffee, we need to wait. And there was this lady in there, and I just like noticed she was like kind of giving me looks or whatever. I mean, obviously it was Rocky Horror, but it's funny because my friend I was with, like, we've been in the show. We go all the time. We go all out. But that one instance, we were dressed fairly like normal people. So we left and we were crossing the street, and I didn't realize she came up behind me. And then she just goes, "Excuse me, I just need to ask, are you a boy or a girl? Because when I look at your face, I can't tell, but then I look at your body and then I start questioning." And then tried to play it off like, no, I'm genuinely interested. And I was thinking to myself, that's not a way to ask. First of all.
And none of your business.
Yeah. So in my head, I was just like, who speaks like that? Like that, it really, and I'll elaborate on this like later, but like with the whole like people being concerned about it, like it affects them drastically when it really doesn't. And so in my head, I was just like, why, like, what makes that, what is that going to do for your life? What if you are curious about something? That's nice. Do your research, or like,
Google it.
Like in the moment, I didn't really know what to do, so I kind of just looked at her and I was like, "Are we dating? I don't think so." my body doesn't think it works like, I don't think it works like that. So, and then she kept following us across the street until I finally just turned around and I was like, okay, you're not special. Like, you're not, you're just looking for negative attention because you're following me across the street with your bottle of wine you just bought, which that might say something, but you know, at midnight. But yeah, so that was definitely interesting. It's like, it's interesting, but interesting doesn't always mean something positive. It was interesting to me. Like, I just felt like maybe in the moment, because I've experienced people not understanding like my whole life, or just like, obviously not with my parents, like I said, but just in general. But it kind of blows my mind how people just say things like that. Because if you really ask them about it, like, do you think you could have worded that way better? 90% of the time they'll say yes. So it's like, okay, you know you're saying something problematic, so why say it? So,
Yeah, check yourself, manage your boundaries. Yeah.
That was definitely a time where I was just like, people just really, that's not respectful.
Yeah.
Jordan, anything?
I mean, I remember just like, I haven't really dealt a lot with that recently, but I do remember in like elementary school, I lost, or not elementary, homeschool, like middle school and stuff. I lost a lot of friends just because their parents were, you know, part of the church, and so are my parents. And like my parents, are still religious, and I'm still pretty spiritual. And it was just kind of like, because I was trans, I was gonna make this one kid gay. He told me because his parents told him that, and stuff like that. And it was hard losing friends to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know you guys went through a really big, I considered a rejection from the church at that time, where that was a big part of your lives, and then it
was our family, my family's been in that church for generations, and for them to literally just like basically shun us was really, I know, really hard on my parents, and a sacrifice that they made, and I appreciate that they did that for me, but it was still hard.
Yeah,
because it was like family, and it's like, well, it's not actually, like, dang.
Yeah, family except, but it's funny because there's I follow some transgender folks on Twitter, and of course, and the thing that I like best is that they really say that if you have a problem with someone who's transgender, that's a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's really about you, and you need to check yourself and figure out why you have the problem. It is not the transgender person's problem. You guys are just living your lives being who you want to be, being who you can't help but be. And both of you are taking off on your careers. Good things are happening. I mean, you all, I can't imagine. This is so much why I wanted you here. Yeah, you're just regular people.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. And so I'm going to open the lines and see if there are any questions. I think this was great. Are there any questions for these two? I don't even know who's on. I was so busy talking to you guys.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Jordan, this is specifically for Jordan. I would like to know how awesome your mom is and how she dealt with all of this.
Okay.
I feel like the fix is in here. That's also Jordan's dog you're seeing right now, the Chooster.
Let's start from, I'll take an example of this church. You were there for a while, and then you literally, for me, took yourself away from that because you saw it as like it being a problem, and you're like, well, that's not something I'm gonna put my son in. And I remember you staying home with me for days and days and days, months, because of my depression. And like now we can make jokes and stuff like that, and you've been the leader of the trans family support group in Santa Cruz, and you brought family together into understanding so many times, and that, I think you are pretty amazing. from where it began when I was 11 to now, I don't know, you've helped a great deal.
Well, I didn't mean for you to go on and on about me. What I would like to say, really what I want to say real quick is that you see two amazing people right there. And it's rare that you can have amazing and strong, inspirational people as these two young people right here. I've seen it myself, and I'm so impressed with you guys. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi.
Can I also bring up something, and Don, I think somebody else might have had a question, but I just want to bring up the idea of the support group as well, because I don't know, Vi, if your parents joined a support group, but I know it's been critical for Jordan's parents to have that support of other parents, and then the learning, you don't have to learn alone. You learn in a bigger group and can help each other with a lot of these questions. Parents have completely different questions than the kids have. Kids kind of got this figured out, and the parents are like, terrified. We don't want you hurt, everything.
There's difference between mothers react and fathers react. So when you have a support group, like for the dads, it's really, especially like, because my dad is like, he's like a hockey bro. He'll sit down and have a beer and just like kind of just zone out with anybody. And I know a lot of dads can. So I mean, it's nice to have dads around and the moms around for this kind of thing, because I'm sure that most dads are not gonna have like that set, like that more like empathetic kind of sense that a mother can have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely. Go ahead. Vi, you were gonna say?
I don't know. With my parents, I know they did like reach out to people. I think it's also because they know. I'm not sure if they actually ever joined a specific support group, but I know that they have friends with trans kids. So I think that probably helped. And also, I think it was just because like both of my parents, like their interests, like not that like interests have like a line. Their things are, my parents and the way they are very, very neutral. Like my dad's not into sports, my mom's not into like makeup. They're both just like, we just like to walk our dogs, and so they don't have like, they were just like, they're very just like neutral people and don't really have, love you mom and dad, but they don't really have much interest in very specific things. They're very like active people about like exercise and stuff, and just like they're, so I don't know, but I know they did like, they like have people they've reached out to. They're really they got like connected with a diversity center in Santa Cruz, which I worked there last summer, which was that's really cool. So love my family there. So yeah, I definitely think support groups they're just needed.
They're there for a reason.
They're really, really helpful.
And you guys did get a lot of support also through the diversity center. They had ways for kids to connect and find support and find people like them, like you guys, right? So I think that's really important for anybody listening.
I'm going to just give it a shout out. Like Camp Aranudik was, when I was 11, it was a summer camp for trans kids, saved my life.
I will put a link to that in the blog about this, because that camp, I know it did save your life.
Because then it's like you find people that are actually like you, and it's like, wow, you guys are normal. This is literally just like it's just a lot of love there.
Actually, I remember you going to a conference too, I think in Philadelphia, where you could finally swim in the pool without your shirt on, which is so silly.
It is silly.
And it was everything. Yeah, you came home so happy from that. Just the freedom to be you. I sound like a Marlo Thomas song now. Free to be you and me. Heidi, did you want to say it again?
Oh, I did have a question, Jen.
Oh yeah, Donna, go ahead.
I was just wondering if your extended family is as accepting, like your grandparents, aunts and uncles, if they now refer to you as a grandson as opposed to a granddaughter, et cetera. Are they very, are they accepting of your immediate, as your immediate family are?
Well, I'll answer first because Jordan wants to do something. So with me, my family, I was actually really scared because so I'm adopted, but like I've been with my adopted parents since I was like 1. So but because of that, my mom's side of the family, they're Greek Orthodox, very, very religious-ish. I don't know. It's, as of right now, they're like kind of just like whatever, because just the world is crazy. So like that's not a huge thing right now. But I wasn't quite sure how we were gonna go about that. So that's where I really needed my parents' support. So they actually they sent out an email or something about it. Because and so the first time that they kind of like met me as my correct self was my uncle's funeral. So I like showed up and they were at first I thought maybe people like I wasn't sure if they were being genuine because it was a funeral and like it was my uncle and they didn't want to like have that be the topic of discussion. Neither did I. I didn't want to like take away from that. But ever since that email, I don't even know what the email said. They've been pretty good with it. I actually like Greek Easter like 2 years ago, two of my cousins sat down with me and just they were asking questions, asking about correct terminology and stuff, just wanted to be educated.
Wow.
And so like we all have each other on social media, and like my family, like a lot of my cousins are very, very social media oriented like myself, and so they're showing like their parents, and then like we're all just kind of like in the know, which is super nice. And even like my yaya, who's like an old fashioned Greek woman, she's like pretty good with it too. She's just, which is really cool. It's not something I expected, and like even with like weddings and stuff, and like like sorry, but like just like one quick thing that going back to the whole religion thing and that aspect, I saw a conversation that someone had, and it was like someone was a preacher and talking to a trans person about it. And because I know for a lot of people and trans people, like religion is a really important thing to them. So having things like issues with the church not understanding and stuff, I know that can be really, really like emotionally taxing. So something that that person said was, if like people think that that goes against religion, which like I guess to some people it does, there's in other things the preacher said, and like if this is incorrect someone tell me, but the person said like there's also quotes in like certain texts saying like that it would like something that would go against that text would be like stitching together two different types of like material of something, or like doing other everyday things that people do.
Yeah.
And so
A lot of the word of the Bible can be strewn and used.
yeah, and so I think it's definitely something that you kind of have to endure for yourself, but there's just I don't know, I at least in that conversation that I saw, it kind of like eased out some people that were listening. So I don't know if that helps anyone, but I guess just like take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, now that I went on that whole tangent, yeah. So my family was it was an easier transition with them than I thought.
So, and what you're saying is that there, and I know Jordan's mom has done some work on this, there's actually, when people want to get biblical about this, they tend to want to use the Bible as a weapon to pound you over the head with it. And the reality is,
that's a book that has been touched many hands.
Yes.
Changed. I believe the word has been changed from the original text of the Bible that was written at the beginning of time. Change words. People move stuff around to make it seem biased. Like it, it's coming to a thing where like, money is the root of evil. It says it in the Bible. Yet when you go to church, they ask for your money. Like it's changed for so long. We know it's donations and its own profit, but like you think about it, that's not really what that's about. It's becoming such a harder issue to deal with because people are kind of making it seem like a cult after a while.
yeah, man adapts it to meet his needs, right?
You're going to argue with, homosexuality is wrong in the Bible. Don't eat shellfish then. It's bad. It's wrong. Like you can pull so many other things out of it and again, while it's with interpretation, you kind of have to use your brain and use some practical intelligence and understand that like it's not the same word as it was at the beginning.
And honestly, I challenge anyone to tell me that God made you wrong.
Because
Exactly.
Yeah, end of discussion, right?
him and he's happy with me. There's no way that he made me in the wrong sense.
That's right. You are who you are, and
Yep.
that is who you're supposed to be.
Sorry.
Yes.
I heard that wrong.
So, okay, I'm going to wrap things up because we've gone long, and I really appreciate you all coming on and being candid, really, really vulnerable and candid, which I think is important. I'm super happy you've been willing to take this message forward and have the bravery to come on today. And I want to thank everybody for coming today. I'm going to check with your mother, Jordan. Is there something else you need to say, Heidi?
Well, yeah, I do really quick. First of all, yeah, I think it's awesome that two brave people can come and, like you said, be very vulnerable. You know, if anybody ever wants to chat about the Bible and what it says about homosexuality and or transgender, oh, I'd love to have that chat with them, because I've done extensive research and it's not what you think it is. The last thing, though, is some parents do need support, others don't. I know we definitely did, because we actually started this journey, almost 18 years ago when you first started talking to us about this. And there was not much out there. So the transgender support group is awesome, that I think you'll post a link to. It's helped over 300, 400 families over the past 10 years, you know, love their children, accept them for who they are. So thanks for supporting that, Jen.
Yeah, I want to make sure anybody listening who has a friend, a kid, a parent, anybody who's heard the child express this and needs support or needs to learn more about it, I'm going to put some links in the blog. Just start talking to other people and trust the child, trust the person, accept them for what they're saying first, and then go from there. But there's a lot of us out here to provide support, and you don't have to go this alone. It's actually, look at these two beautiful, sorry, Jordan, I'll be quiet so you can say it. What were we going to say?
It's okay to not know everything about the subject. It's okay to be vulnerable and to be like, I have no idea what this is. Someone help me. It's okay to say that, because we've all literally been in the same spot, and we can have that compassion and empathy to be like, okay, here's where you start. And we're not going to lead you down the wrong way. Mm-hmm. This is something that we deal with. And so that's why we help people.
There's information out there. There's really, really, really good information out there.
Yeah, there is. There's nothing better, though, than for me to see two beautiful people sitting here who have their whole lives to live, who are making vital contributions, and have the courage to be here. And I want to thank you guys so much for coming. And I will see everybody else tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye.